Hello folks. Um, Today I'm going to run through a short series of videos displaying how we can create a simple image gallery using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. What I'm going to be using as a development tool is this website, JSFiddle. JSFiddle is pretty cool in that what it allows me to do is to have a complete working system where I can type in HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and then display the results in this lower panel. This will help me from having to bounce back and forth between different windows and different browsers. Should make it easier for you to follow along. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you with JSFiddle is that we have over here a way to set up different kinds of frameworks or different types of code that we can be using. Right now, it shows that I'm running no libraries, just pure, simple JavaScript. And that's what we're going to stick with. Right underneath this drop-down, there's another drop-down that says onload. What that basically means is that when I run my code, all the code that I put inside this panel here will be run once the web page is completely loaded. That means all the CSS is loaded, all the HTML is loaded, and then the JavaScript will then kick in. There are different options underneath these two tabs. If I look under here, you can see there's lots of different types of JavaScript libraries we can use. We're going to stick with no libraries. On load, there are different setups that we can use here as well. We're going to stick with on load. Okay, with that, up here at the top we have our run button. That means once we create some code in these three panels, we hit run and the results will show up here. Now, if you log in and create an account, you can save your work so that you can go back and review it later. This tidy up button does basically what it sounds like. It's going to clean up your code, indent it so that it's easier to read. And this JS hint button, what it does is basically it validates your JavaScript to make sure that you don't have any errors in it. If you do have errors, you can click this and the JS hint tool will show you what errors you've done as an error, and that will help you correct it. Okay, one of the other things I've been talking about since the beginning of the quarter is using a tool called SAS, S-A-S-S, which is a language that's built on CSS. What I want you to do for your jump pages is to use SAS instead of CSS. So the nice thing about JSFiddle, under Fiddle Options here, actually I think it's under External Resources, no, Languages, yes. Under Languages, there's this drop down where I can choose how I want to use my styles. So here, instead of using CSS, I'm going to use SCSS, which is SAS. JSFiddle will automatically compile my SAS code into CSS and so that it will work in the result pane. I'm going to stick with SCSS, and you should see that little right up here, that little label shows me that what I type in this window is going to be SCSS and not regular CSS. Okay, good. With that all done, we can begin. Now, let me show you an example of what we're going to complete. Here is an example of the finish tool. So in this panel here is the HTML, which is pretty simple. Just a heading, a navigation or nav tag that contains 3 anchor tags. This looks messier than it really is. It's just because these URLs are really long for my pictures. JSFiddle does not have a storage location for you to upload pictures. So in order for the pictures to show up, I need to link to them from my host, which is atlantainteractivedesign.com. This panel down here is where we put our JavaScript, and in it we have one main JavaScript function that is used to initialize or to add the behavior onto our links, our navigation links. And then here This is one of the functions that when we click on a link, this is one of the functions that gets called. It will change the picture. The name changePic should be self-explanatory. The second function, setStatus, does the same thing. It will set the status indication on the link that we click. Okay, so let's take a look at how this functions. Over here, when we first start our JS Fiddle, we see our h1 tag, we see our nav tag with our 3 links in it, we see our image that we're linking to, and we have underneath the image tag is a paragraph tag which will contain the caption for each picture. So if I run this, click on arrows, you can see that there's a status indication that's blue and red, and then under here the text changes as well as the picture. Okay, very good. So that's essentially what we're going to build. It seems pretty simple, but along the way we're going to learn some fundamental principles that hopefully you'll be able to extend on, that you can practice and then try doing more complex things on your own. Now here's the tab for the Sass. You can see it looks pretty much like regular CSS. The difference here is that at the top I've created what we call a variable. This is a Sass variable. You can tell because it has a $sign in front of it. What that says is create a variable called color, store in it the value red. Now anywhere that I use this variable, see right below here, h1 color is set to $sign color. You can see my h1 is red. Down here, I'm setting the image borders just so it's a little bit different. It's not quite so square. This is a descendant selector, so this will style all the anchor tags inside of nav, which are these right here. It will give them a margin of 1/2 em, so they're not touching each other. It's a little bit of a space. And they're displayed inline blocks so that I can, if I want to, give them width and height. These two classes here, .on and .off, basically are to style these anchor tags. So this has a class of on, these have a class of off. Okay, you can see on the class of on, I'm using that variable again, color. Okay, so this is how this functions. This is what we're going to build. So let's start from scratch. Let's see. Let's start with just since this is a JS Fiddle, we do not have to put all of the doc type definition, all of the boilerplate code that we would normally have in every single web page. We can just start right off with our h1 tag. So very good. So that's our heading. Now if I hit run, you'll see it shows up here. Good. Next, the only thing we only need really a couple more elements on this page. We'll have a nav element, which is an HTML5 element. And that will be used to store our links that we'll use to swap out our pictures. So our nav will have, we'll just start with one anchor tag. So an href attribute, we need that. That's going to be when we click on the link, that's where the anchor is going to take us. Okay. The next thing after that, we'll want to give this link a title attribute. And the reason for that is that's where we're going to store the information we're going to show as our caption text for each slide. So for this first one, I'll just call it Yay Fireworks. Okay, good. And I'll close that, and then I will close my anchor tag. Now in between here I need some text to click on, so I'll just call it Fireworks. Like that. If I hit run, you'll see there is my link. Okay, excellent. Now if I click it, nothing happens because there's no anchor tag. My anchor tag doesn't take me anywhere. I'm just going to link to my images from elsewhere. You can see I got an error because I have nothing in my anchor tag. So here, if I just do a test, run, click this, it should navigate to google.com. Okay. I'm going to grab an anchor for my picture, so I'm going to steal this from my previously created one. Okay, there we go. So now when I click it, you can see it's taking me to the fireworks image. So this link works. It's a basic link. Run to refresh it, and nothing special. You click it and it navigates to that picture. You can tell it's navigating there because this all disappears. Okay, run refreshes. Now ultimately that's not what we want to have happen, but remember, one of the steps of creating a progressively enhanced site is to first make it work. So I'm just going to add 3 links that will link to 3 different images. So I'll add 2 more. And the images will be, actually I have, instead of fireworks JPEG, I have Big Ben. And another is a rose. So okay, I'll hit run, and you can see I have 3 links now. And Big Ben takes me to the Big Ben picture, and rose takes me to the rose. Okay, so what we have here is functional. It's a series of links that display pictures, but it's not particularly exciting or helpful because in order to get back to the list, the user has to click the back button. We don't want to do that. With our gallery, we want to click the link and have the picture displayed below the list without having to refresh the page. Okay, so now in order to do that, we need to add an image. So in our HTML, I'll create an image tag. And on the image, I will also provide it an ID. The idea when we're writing HTML is we want to use classes for when we want to style something. But for the most part, we want to use IDs when we want to capture that element and manipulate it with JavaScript. Now, since this image is going to change over time, I'm going to give it an ID. I'll just call it pic. Okay, as well as give it an alt attribute. Okay, so there's our image. I'll provide the image a URL, so I'll just have our first photo in that image. If I hit run, there we see. We have our H1, we have our navigation across the top of the image itself. Finally, I want to create a paragraph tag so each image can have some form of caption text that describes the image below it. So, paragraph. I'm also going to give this paragraph an ID attribute because I want to manipulate this with JavaScript as well. I'll call this caption. And in this text, I'll give a description. I'll just copy what we have up here. Yay, fireworks. Okay, if I run it, now you can see we have our complete setup. We have our heading, our navigation, our image where the images will be displayed, and a description area for each image. Currently, if I click on any link, nothing happens, right? It just navigates to the pictures. It doesn't update my page. That's because we haven't added any JavaScript yet. First, we have our structure with our HTML. Okay. Next, we'll create some CSS to style this. We'll leave it here just so that you can review this video, get your HTML in line with what I have, and then we'll move forward with the CSS or Sass.